Hi, and welcome to Organizational Behavior, Chapter 8. Today we're going to be talking about motivation from concepts to applications. So let's look at this exhibit 8.1. And this is basically looking at or describing the 5 core job dimensions. So any job should be able to be described by these core dimensions. So let's talk about them. So the first one is skill variety, task identification, task significance, autonomy, and feedback. So these are the 5 core. So skill variety is the degree at which a job requires a variety of different abilities and skills, talents. So it's sort of how diverse is your job? And they do say that, if the job is, you might be high paid, but if your job is just putting tires onto a car, that's not going to have a lot of job satisfaction. So they discovered that, of course, having a job where using a variety of skills and tasks and talents is a little bit more fulfilling. Okay. Task identity. So this is the degree at which the job requires completion of a whole and identifiable piece of work. So are you just, sewing a patch onto fabric? Are you making a full set of pants? Are you just doing one small piece in an assembly line? Or are you completing the whole project to a finished good? Task significance, the degree to which the job has a substantial impact on the lives of other people. So are you working somewhere that's helping people? Maybe a non-for-profit that's, feeding or sheltering people or educating people. How significant is your job to the impact of other people? This is a source of pride for a lot of people, that they work in a job that actually has a positive impact on society. Autonomy, the degree at which a job provides you freedom, independence, the ability to act on your own, the ability to set your own individual agenda and schedule and determine procedures to be used in carrying out your job task. So to many people, this is very important to be able to do it their way and to have a certain amount of freedom in their work. The 5th characteristic or core job dimension we'll talk about is feedback. The degree to which carrying out the work activities required by the job results in the individual obtaining direct or clear information about the effectiveness of their work. So you know what feedback is, it's pretty common, but as a core job dimension, it's something that is definitely needed in a job for a job to be motivating or satisfying. So think about what is your combination, how many skills ideally suit you best. What tasks, how much do you like to complete a full task? How significant your work is to society? How much a level of autonomy you need, and how much feedback do you receive? So these basically when we talk about the first 3, variety, identity, and significance, we're talking about the meaningfulness of your work. How much are you proud of your work? Does it mean something to you? Even do you enjoy it? Autonomy is really about being responsible for your work and the outcomes. And feedback is getting results of how you did, how your work activities, So if you're able to get these, hopefully, if your work is meaningful, hopefully that's more internal motivation. Hopefully you get, if you have a meaningful job and you're in charge of your responsibilities and you get adequate feedback, it's going to improve your quality of your work satisfaction. It's going to make you more engaged and happy to be at work. And ideally, that's what businesses want, not because they want to be nice to you or make sure you have a good life. No, they want this because generally output is higher with individuals that like their job and feel satisfied. Profits are higher, results are better when employees are happy and satisfied, and they work harder, they work longer, they work better. This is why companies are interested in this characteristics model. Now, the core dimensions of the job characteristics model, or JCM, as it's sometimes referred to, can be combined into a single predictive index called the motivating potential score, the MPS. To be high in the motivating potential, jobs must be high in at least one of the three factors that lead to experiencing a meaningful work experience, and high on both autonomy and feedback. So if job scores high in motivating potential, the model predicts that motivation, performance, and satisfaction will improve, and absenteeism and turnover will be reduced. I mean, it's very common sense. You like your job, you like what you do, you feel like it has impact and meaningfulness to it, you're, of course, going to perform better and make more profits for the company. Now, how can jobs be redesigned? So, in the past, many employers, didn't care if the employees lived or died. They're basically treated, in a way, do your job or you'll be punished. And we don't care if you get injured or you don't like it, or we're paying you, and if you don't like it, you leave, we'll find somebody else. That was the attitude. And the results for companies were poor when they had that attitude. So companies started thinking, okay, how can we make the employees happier so they'll do their jobs better and we'll make more money? It's all about profits. Well, they found that having some variety is beneficial to employees. So jobs with very little variety, autonomy, or motivation resulted in poor job being done, poor performance. So, because people get bored, people don't like to be bossed around, and these are motivation killers. Now, job rotation is really just being able to do shift around between other tasks. So say, take that example when you were, I was talking about an automobile and you're just putting tires onto the car. Well, if they're rotating you and you're doing one day or one shift, maybe 4 hours, you're doing the tires, and then maybe you're attaching the hood or helping with the suspension system, something different to mix up your tasks so they're not so repetitive. People like us generally seek out jobs that are challenging and stimulating. But, that's what we want. We don't want to be bored at work. Repetitive jobs are horrible. They're boring, they're frustrating, they're mind-numbing. So ideally what we want, of course, is variety. So if there are repetitive jobs, that's just the nature of the job is repetitive, they can do job rotations so you're not doing the same thing all the time. They can job you, it's a little bit more interesting to do 10 different repetitive things than one repetitive thing continuously, is the idea. It can also sometimes be known by the acronym cross-training. It involves periodic shifting of employees from one task to another. Now, the good thing about this is it keeps, makes employees feel a little bit more challenged, gets employees become more knowledgeable the overall entire process of the business, and it makes the employee a little bit smarter about, not smarter, but they could piece things together better. If they have more exposure to different elements and different tasks in the company or the work in general, they'll be able to be more constructive in putting together solutions or putting together ideas or new concepts because they have the big picture, the total picture. So the benefits of this job rotation is it's going to reduce, of course, boredom, hopefully increase motivation. It could reduce repetitive injury. Carpal tunnel syndrome is an example of a repetitive injury. It can help, if you had, it can help alleviate if there's vacancies. It can help if you're running a line and you usually have you need 4 people to be putting tires on cars, but there's only 2 people there. You can kind of take someone from another area because they're all cross-trained. It'd be easier if someone leaves with the knowledge someone else is cross-trained. They know how to train a new person. Some drawbacks, though, of this job rotation is it can be disruptive. There's more time needed for training, extra time for supervision and addressing questions, and it could reduce some efficiencies if people are doing a lot of different things. Maybe they don't become an expert in any one thing. So there can be some drawbacks to it. But I think anybody who's worked a job, you generally would want to seek out some new responsibilities, some new tasks. You don't want to be doing the same thing. No one can love the exact same thing continuously. Now, let's talk about job enrichment. This is basically making the job a better experience. So high-level responsibilities are added to a job to increase a sense of purpose, direction, and meaning and increasing intrinsic motivation. So you want to somehow make the job more fulfilling. And so job enrichment has its roots in the Hertzberg theories we talked about in the previous chapter, providing motivation factors to increase job motivation. So early reviews suggest that job enrichment can be effective at reducing turnover and almost twice as effective as giving employees a realistic preview of the work week before they join the organization. So while redesigning jobs on the basis of job characteristics theories is likely to make the work more intrinsically motivating to people, more contemporarily focused on how the jobs are more how can I say, just when I'm trying to explain this in a way, an example of job enrichment. So if your job is like going back to the manufacturing metaphor of assembling the car, maybe they add some additional responsibilities where you go in and you work with engineers on the best way, improving the design of the car to make the assembly easier, giving you some more opportunities to participate in a higher level would make you feel like your voice is meaningful, useful, and helpful to the company, and that your ideas, your brain is actually also something they want to engage with, not just your physical ability to put a car together. So that would be a way of enriching that type of position. Now you want to motivate employees to connect better with their work. So one way is that having customers that can speak to the benefits of the product or how the product helped them. Maybe you're making medical equipment, or maybe you're making something that wheelchairs, or something that would be a benefit to somebody, and they can kind of reply back that this was very helpful to me. So the beneficiaries of your job, it's nice to hear from them. This may make your job, you feel like your job is a little enriched because you're actually getting positive feedback from customers, clients, or patients on the use of the products. So you're meeting the people who are benefiting firsthand, allowing employees to see that their actions affect real people's lives and that their jobs have a tangible consequence. So in addition, connection with beneficiaries make customers or clients feel more accessible in memory and more emotionally vivid. So it leads employees to consider their effect on their actions more. And finally, connecting allows employees to easily take their perspective of the beneficiaries, which force a higher level of commitment. So job enrichment, relational job design is a way of making someone's job better, more interesting, more motivating, connecting the dots. If you heard about, Boeing has had some issues with their planes, and there was one thing where a door was not secured properly, and it flew off during a flight. I mean, maybe Boeing should stress to their employees, the safety of their performance directly leads to the safety of the plane and the reliability of the plane, and that people rely on these planes. They might themselves rely on this plane if they're flying somewhere. So if they have a more personal connection to what they're doing and a more pride, that's why if you work for, say, a restaurant, and the person that owns the restaurant is also someone who's cooking at the restaurant, they will cook to a higher level. And I remember I used to tell, when I did at one point work, I managed a chain of movie theaters in college when I was a college student. And I used to tell employees all the time, don't serve something to somebody you wouldn't eat yourself. You wouldn't want to serve to yourself. So don't serve them a bucket of crumbs and kernels. Don't sell them flat soda. I mean, think about what you're doing, and they're paying a lot for this food. So make sure it's of the higher quality. It's okay to throw, a lot of employees have a problem with throwing away food because you don't do that in your household, and your parents probably taught you not to throw away food. But in food services, you have to throw away food if it's not at the quality that the customers expect. And it's a small thing, but just making that relationship in their mind between their job and the person receiving the food and the connection to themselves changes something. And then people aren't going to be complaining about being served, things that are less than the quality they're expecting. Okay. Let's talk about alternative work arrangements. And this motivates employees. For example, it is absolutely a nightmare to have to work 9 to 5. And no companies work 9 to 5. Every company I had was like 8:30 to 5 because they don't pay you for half your lunch hour or something like that. It's a real burden to work 40 hours a week, 5 days a week. It's hard to get anything else done in your life, especially if you have kids, or other family commitments, or maybe you have some side hustles you're working. It's really difficult for today's people to be locked into a company for 40 hours straight in the office. It's very demotivating for a lot of people who will leave their career or seek out other employment due to inflexibility. So having a flexible work environment helps boost motivation. I think a lot of you can understand this, especially since post-COVID, where flexibility is a little bit more easily obtained. Now, flex time is defined as a flexible work hours for those, who want to work at a different time structure than 9 to 5. So it allows employees some discretion over when they arrive at work and when they leave. So for example, if you live in a high traffic zone, maybe you want to get to work at 10 instead of 9 and stay to 6 instead of 5 to avoid that traffic. And actually, think how good it would be for the environment if we did have more sporadic job starts and ends, so that instead of everybody being crammed into an hour and a half rush hour in the morning and the afternoon, if you extended that to a 3-hour period where people are coming and going, it would greatly reduce traffic, saving thousands of hours of people's time, money on gas, beneficial to the environment, beneficial to people's motivation, and this allows employees some discretion about, how they're going to break up this 40-hour work week. Maybe some people want to work 4 10-hour days rather than 5 8-hour days. So one review over 40 studies suggests that flex time is related to positive work outcomes in general, but only weekly affects how much stronger when considered reduction in absenteeism. So flex time, if you look at flex time and then its effect on, as far as how people's, produce their work, you see a much stronger correlation when you look at the reduction in absenteeism. So if there were days you had to take off because you couldn't go to work and do that one thing you had to do, maybe go to a doctor's appointment or take your child to the dentist, you had to take the whole day off. Now with flex time, you don't have to do that. You can just take off the couple hours you need and then fit it in elsewhere. So the improvements in productivity and schedule satisfaction are there. So flex time tends to reduce absenteeism because employees can schedule around their personal demands, and this is also and they can work more productively. So maybe and the way I want to explain this is, some people are morning people, some people are night people. So having the ability to, and I myself, I'm not a morning person, but I'm also not a night person. I'm more effective from, I would say, 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. is my effective time period. So if I could get a job where my 8 hours are 11 a.m. to 7 p.m., I'd work a lot better than if I had to wake up at the crack of dawn and get to work at 8 a.m. and, things of that nature. And flex time costs the employer nothing. So why not grant, some sort of flex time? Or why not grant jobs why do jobs have to be 40 hours a week? Maybe somebody can get it done in 30 hours. Maybe do a flexible schedule where some weeks they work a lot of hours, some weeks they work less hours. Now there's also something called job sharing. So this allows two more individuals to split a traditional full-time job. So instead of having two people work 40 hours a week, each, you have two people just work one job and they're working 20 hours. Or maybe somebody works 10 hours, somebody works 30 hours, or maybe somebody works Monday, Tuesday, the other person works Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Now this is, not a lot of jobs allow for job sharing. And it's not adopted as easily because job sharing is hard because you're working in a team, in a partnership. And individuals typically don't want to work in teams or in partnerships. And it's really hard to find someone that you would work well with. Typically what happens with job sharing is sometimes it does work out, but sometimes it tends that one person takes advantage a little bit more and does less of the work. And then the other person feels like they're doing all the work, and it usually leads to more problems than it solves. In some cases, it is a solution. In a lot of cases, it brings up a lot more problems. But it has worked out for some people. And typically, if it's something where two people come to a situation and they say, listen, the two of us, we want to share this job. We don't want to, neither of us want to work full time. And we're willing, somehow maybe they complement each other. So one person can work one element of the job they're really good at, and the other person can work the other element of the job they're good at. So together they make like a fantastic employee, can do all things well, rather than having an employee that can do half their job very well. Just some ideas there. Okay. Telecommuting. We all know what this is. Working from home or anywhere, and the employee chooses outside of the physical workspace. So telecommuting has gained, a huge amount of benefits post-COVID pandemic, where there's been a framework established for effective telecommuting practices with Zoom, conferencing, Microsoft Teams. So the ability to have and the advent of inexpensive laptops have really allowed employees to work remotely, and not just at home, anywhere. So it empowers employees to maintain a better work-life balance. It encourages some people just feel more comfortable working from home or more motivated to work from home. The fact that they get to telecommute and work from home keeps them performing at a high level because they don't want to lose that ability to do that. And employers have, come to terms with monitoring and looking at people's, success in telecommuting and working with people to make it more successful. And certainly the technology's there with the Zoom teleconferencing, Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, even Google Apps. It's easier than ever to share documents, work together while being remote. And, for many people, it saves them a lot of money in commuting and the stress and time of commuting. And it is a good solution for a lot of people. And telecommuting, creates the ability to have a workforce that's beyond your local communities. So if you need specialists or you need people that have skills that may not be in your local area, you don't have to spend the money to offer them a lot of money and then move them out to where your company is located. So telecommuting is just overall wonderful for everybody. The only person that's not wonderful is the older managers that feel like they need people around them for their ego. So they feel like, oh, look at me. I have all my little minions are here working, and I can lord over them and bother them in their cubicles or in offices and disrupt their days. So I feel like I'm earning my wage as the top dog manager. So these people have discovered they really don't do much if their employees aren't around. So what's the need for them? Especially if they're older employees, they don't adapt well to the new telecommuting technologies. So a response has been tried to force these people to come back to the office. And that sometimes doesn't work out well. Some cities have been offering incentives or bullying companies into forcing their employees to come back, so the cities can get some more money in their local taxes or their commuting money for either parking, tolls, or taking the subway or the bus. So cities are trying to encourage companies to bring more employees back. Some companies are trying to justify their office space by forcing employees back, and this oftentimes leads to losing a lot of good talent, as they'll search for another job where they can work remotely. And I personally feel that it makes sense for a company to have either a hybrid model or fully telecommuting, or a hot desk situation where instead of having 100,000 square feet of office space, they could do with 30,000 square feet of office space and just rotate people in as needed. Only come together when there is a pressing physical need to be together. So the future of work is going to be more telecommuting and less in the office. It just makes more profitable sense for most companies to downsize the cost and the expense of the office and offer the flexibility of the employees to get the ability to have a workforce to draw from the entire country as a workforce. Some areas can be kind of tough to get the employees you need. Okay, well, let's move on. So, of course, the advantages are job performance, job satisfaction typically goes up. So how does job performance go up? Well, they found that employees really appreciate the ability to work from home and want to make sure that they're not looked at as they're doing less. So employees actually step up and make sure that they're more visible, their work output increases, and their job satisfaction increases. So it's a win-win. It can reduce some work-family conflict. If someone's working from home, that may reduce the need for childcare. So I'm not talking little children, but if you have, children that are 10 to 16 years old that you don't want to be home, you typically don't want them home alone for some, you could be there, that, child could be occupied doing their homework or playing with friends. There's a lot of different scenarios here. But in some cases, it can help reduce the cost of childcare or help connect a little bit better with your family because you're now not a ghost 5 days a week. You're actually there, Reduce carbon emissions, of course, because it's going to reduce, the need to the need to commute in a car, which produces a lot of, greenhouse gases. And it can reduce the wear and tear on your car. You won't have to replace your car as much. So there's a lot of benefits, advantages. Some disadvantages is employers might feel that it's these older management type employees might feel that people aren't doing their work, or that teamwork is too difficult, or it's difficult to evaluate the performance of someone who's working from home. These are just excuses. If the manager with a little extra training and understanding, there should be no problem. It's actually easier to coordinate teamwork on a Zoom call than trying to meet in person. And if the job's not getting done, there's plenty of metrics to use to know whether or not the employee's output is benefiting or not. So you're always going to have employees that work hard and employees that don't work hard. And let me tell you, I've seen employees not working hard in the office all the time. I mean, people on the internet all day long, watching YouTube, on their phone, talking to other employees, reading. This, being in the office doesn't result in people working better, in my opinion. They could goof off as easily in the office as they could do at home. Now, employees might feel a sense of isolation or reduced quality of coworker relationships. They might not be as noticed as much, or definitely there's a trend and their promotions are less if you work from home. I think this is definitely could be a problem if you work for a company and you've never worked with the people in person. So I could see how you might feel like it's hard to have a relationship, or you might feel isolated. But if companies, that's why hybrid situations are good, having situations where employees can come in or meet with the other employees, or their social events, this can help alleviate some of this. Me personally, working from home, when I had that opportunity while working for businesses, I didn't miss anybody. I didn't feel isolated at all. My relationships were fine, and I really didn't feel like I missed having to physically be in the same room as my coworkers. So, who works from home in this poll? Of course, mostly college-educated people are working from home because they have the technical skills, the computer-oriented skills, the expertise that's a little bit easier to work from home. It's a lot harder to work from home. The less education you have, the more probably you might be working in fields where it really demands your presence to be there. There's just no way around it. So I think this is pretty common sense, though. One would just expect these results. Now, let's go back to motivation, employee involvement. So the more the employee feels involved in the inputs, in their connection to how the company is going to go moving forward, whether it's developing new products or developing policies or improving job characteristics, or the more involved they are, the more connected they feel, of course, the more motivated they will be. So companies can do programs where everybody's more participative in the management tasks of the organization. A little bit more responsibility could be shared. Now, in participative management, there'd be joint decision making between the employees and the managers and the directors and the vice presidents. This helps to feel heard. And if the people who are your leaders are hearing you, you generally have more trust in them. Studies in this have yielded, I guess, some mixed results. So when subordinates share a significant amount of ability to add to the decision making or have some decision making power, this participation just seems to make them feel that they have some control. So control is the key issue here. If you have some control in your job, in the direction of the company, in decisions the company makes, you feel better about your work and you do get more motivated. Now, representative participation, Workers can be represented by a small group of employees who, actively participate in the decision making. So there's sort of like not all employees are going to be participating, but there will be people at your level who represent you participating. So if you are, at a lower level and there's, 100 of you, there'll be a small contingent who actually are going to be in the decision making roles, and that could rotate. So everybody sort of gets a chance at that. So this representative is more common in Europe, where there could be work council, board representation, where there's some input and feedback given by the different levels of worker organization, from the very low level to the very high level. And it's very, very European to do this. It's not so common in America, but people again feel like they have more control and they have more say. Now let's talk about intrinsic pay programs and employee motivation. So we're talking about rewards to motivate people. Specifically, what should we pay employees? So we saw in the chapter of attitudes, pay is not primarily a factor in job satisfaction. However, it does motivate people and companies to, and it often underestimates its importance in keeping top talent. So basically, if your job is paying you well, you're going to think twice before leaving it. You're going to value your job more if you feel that you're paid adequately or more than you should be paid. So what's the organization to do? How should the pay structure be established? That's not an easy question. It's a complex process that entails balancing internal equity, external equity, people's education, abilities, experiences. Organizations tend to prefer to pay leaders much more and above market than regular employees. Now, so here's the thing with pay. It has been shown that an open payroll is more motivating to employees than the closed payroll. So when people, it also makes the payroll more fair. So when payroll is unbalanced, people sort of suspect it. And, it could lead to these secret or quiet payrolls typically lead to more demotivating aspects. So open payrolls have proven to be very successful at keeping employees' morale and keeping employees' pay more equitable and preventing discrimination against employees. Now, you might be brainwashed already by companies who spend a lot of time and energy to convince employees that payroll should be quiet, should be secret. Don't talk about your raises. Don't talk about your bonuses. Don't talk about your salaries. Of course, the company wants to do that, and they want to brainwash you to feeling like that's the way to go because it saves them more money because they can get away with underpaying people and not paying people what they're worth based on their experience or their amount of years with the company. So it's only in your benefit to have an open payroll, and then that way you could feel a little more secure that you're getting paid adequately or for your job, which would lead you to feel a little bit more satisfied about your job, rather than if you felt or had the suspicion you were being underpaid. So how do you reward or pay people? And there's varying pay programs. So a number of organizations are moving away from paying solely on credentials or length of service. There's a pay rate based on what they call a piece pay rate, is how many pieces you produce. A merit pay base, which is based on your again similar to your output. There's bonuses, profit sharing, and employee stock ownership plans. They're all forms of different types of pay you can receive as an employee. Now, a lot of the pay programs are going to be portioned out by connecting your performance, measuring your performance and your contributions to the company, and they can fluctuate up and down. So think of commissions. So commissions is a way of you sell more, you make more. So the company benefits because you're selling more, and you benefit because you're selling more, you make the company more profits, more money, they're paying you more. So it's a real clear connection between the effort I put in and the money I make. So now also, when you talk about raises or bonuses or profit sharing, bonuses and pay raises are supposed to be rewards for doing a good job, keeping the company profitable. Profit sharing, again, is supposed to motivate people. Let me do a good job and let's all work together and make sure the company does a good job so we can all share in the profits. And that's similar to stock ownership where they give stock. So if the company does well, the stock price goes up and again, you benefit. Again, these are all ways to try to motivate people to work. Okay, so a little bit more specifically, the first variable I was mentioning is the piece pay rate. Here, workers are paid a fixed sum for each unit they produce. So if you're assembling keychains or you're assembling clothing, for every piece that you make, you get money. So there's no base salary. You just get paid by what you produce. And this is just a way of really connecting your output and your productivity to the money the company's going to make. So it's a low risk for companies because you're always going to make money because they're not going to be paying you to sit around and do nothing, basically. So the main limitation of the piece rate is that it doesn't work for all types of jobs. You can't really do this for office jobs. This is more like small manufacturing jobs, assembling small pieces. So it's really not going to work for all. It's very limited, actually. There's only a few jobs where that will work. Now, the merit-based pay allows employers to differentiate pay based on performance. So the better you perform, the more merit that you're going to earn. So a merit is sort of, they need to review did you go above and beyond your work parameters this year? And we have a pile of money that we can give you some based on the fact we think that you really did more than we expected. But typically companies base this on your annual performance reviews, and there's usually the merit pay pools fluctuate. Sometimes unions may not like this. There could be some resistance, but it's a way of trying to reward the workers who had a good year, did a real good year for the company. Now, it's also tricky about merit pay is sometimes you get the merit pay. It doesn't repeat though. Here's $2,000. You did a great job this year. Here goes $2,000. Not like a raise. A raise you get continuously forever. A merit pay is usually one time, like a bonus, one-time pay that you get. So same with bonuses, you get that on the annual basis, and it doesn't mean you're going to get that next year, or you may get more or less or none. Typically, it was meant for management, but more and more companies are broadening this out to all employees to really reward them for if the company does exceptionally well that year and made a lot of profits, and it could be a way of giving back to employees and employees seeing the fruits of their work. Now, profit sharing plans are again part of a person's compensation. There's a formula, and basically if the company makes X amount of money, you'll get this percentage of that. So it does have a positive. People just see that their efforts can directly reward them personally, monetarily. So the idea is that employees will work harder because they're going to share in the profits of the company. And it gives you this idea or this feeling of ownership of the company. And that feeling of ownership is really a good way of having people care more and have more quality in their work. Now, employee stock ownership programs, ESOP, again, this is really, we're talking about stock. So usually stock is given to employees. It has to invest over time. And as you're accumulating the stock, your idea is, let me work harder to get the stock price higher. It's a way of trying to reward employees who are building wealth for the company. So we can, and it's an easy way. If you give, companies can create shares. So they have a pool of shares that they can give to employees that cost them essentially nothing. So they're just creating it. Well, it does have a little dilution effect on the overall pool, but if it's a large company, they can easily create a number of shares for employees. They aren't going to affect the overall value or dilution rate of the stock. And it's a great way of keeping companies feeling like they are an ownership to the company. Now, it says here it can reduce unethical behavior, but in some cases it can create unethical behavior. So I worked for a company that's now no longer in business, Symbol Technologies, and they had a lot of employees who had a lot of stock that was given to them, and so much so that they were falsifying revenues to help push the stock price up higher because they were materially gaining so much by doing whatever they could, ethical and unethical, to increase the stock price. So sometimes I disagree with this slide a little bit. I think it can increase unethical behavior as people might tend to lie or cheat to get that stock price higher. And it led to a huge problem for companies around 2003 that they worked up the Sarbanes-Oxley Act to kind of counteract some of this negative effect of too much stock options. So pay variability programs increase motivation. So, but do pay variable programs increase motivation and productivity? Most people feel generally, yes, they do. But is everybody motivated equally by them? So managers really have to understand that the performance reward expectancies are different between different people, and employees, feel greater performance will yield a greater result, might be more motivated. Although if employee puts in a real amount of effort and does a real great performance, but their manager just doesn't like them and gives them a poor evaluation, that could be very demotivating. So there could be some personal vendettas or emotions involved that should be, you should be wary of. So managers really need to work to be ethical and unemotional and more logical in how they are going to dish out these pay increases. So flexible benefits, developing a benefits package. So, this is a very important aspect, and sometimes up to 30% of your compensation is the benefits package. So if you can allow employees to choose, the compensation package that best satisfies their current situation, benefits should be included in that. And most corporations in the U.S. do offer flexible benefits. So this is a way of, you could choose what level of healthcare plan you want, if you want dental or life insurance. So to accommodate your different needs, maybe you have medical benefits from your spouse, and you're more interested in other types of flexible benefits that the employer can offer, not typically some of the typical ones. You might be more interested in, does the employer offer childcare on the premise? Does the employer have other types of benefits that maybe your spouse doesn't have? So together you have a better benefits package. So these can be motivators, definitely. If there are jobs where people will work at that have lower pay, but because the benefits are so generous, they might be compelled to stay longer. So for an example of that is, you might work at a company where your salary isn't competitive, but you're getting a full pension. So you might just be motivated to stay based on the fact that you're going to be getting a full pension upon retirement, where a lot of employees don't get that anymore. Employee recognition programs. This is where employee organizations have a way of recognizing employees for their increasing hard work to try to motivate them. So sometimes, financial incentives are nice, but it's nice to be recognized that you're employee of the month, or, you're outstanding this or outstanding that, as voted by maybe the customers or other employees or the management. So praise is free. Praises go a long way, and people do like to be recognized if they do a real good job. But if you praise one employee, could it alienate other employees that they feel that they did just as much hard work? Possibly. So let's talk about how managers can use this information. Well, you could definitely think about, when feasible, how to design and redesign jobs to get optimal employee motivation, focusing on characteristics and different job elements. Consider be open-minded to alternate work arrangements to allow employees to better manage their lives. If you are, if you're getting older in the workforce and you're, between maybe in your 40s or your 50s, you might be simultaneously taking care of children and your elderly parents. So you might have to be taking grandma to the doctor as well as your child. And there's a lot of demands on you to help your family that only a more alternate work arrangement could satisfy. That might be the difference between keeping a really good employee and losing a really good employee. So, high level managers and bosses there need to be more open minded and flexible to how what people need at work. Allow employees to participate in decision making. I remember I worked for a company where they didn't want to hear your ideas because they wanted sole credit for any new product or any new idea they had. So they weren't thinking about the betterment of the entire business. They're thinking about, oh, if I listen to your idea and I make a product based on what you're saying, I'm going to lose some power in the company, or I'm going to lose some meaning, some of my ability to say, I created this, I created that. So it's just really selfish. And you should allow, and companies that are open to participating in other, with all the employees, or having the ability for employees of all levels to offer ideas and suggestions or improvements, has always been a more profitable route in a more sustainable work environment. Especially when employees can contribute to setting work goals, choosing benefits packages, solving productivity or quality problems, and linking rewards to performance, so that people feel like, yeah, if I put a lot of hard work in, I'm going to get, a direct result from that. It's really demotivating to do a big project, put a lot of hard work in, work the whole weekend, and your boss doesn't even say thank you. It's terrible. So check the motivation systems for inequality. So employees should perceive that individual efforts and outcomes explain the difference in pay and rewards, and that people aren't simply being paid more because of their gender, because of, any of the characteristics that could, I remember when I was younger, a lot of excuses were, oh, we have to pay them more because they're older and they're married and they have families. And no, that's not how it should work. You should pay an employee for what they're worth and what they contribute, not what their personal financial obligations are. So anyway, hopefully work has been more involved, and hopefully you can take some of this knowledge back to your employer and think of ways, if you're in a position, to improve your job or improve other people's jobs, because there's nothing better than having a job that you like. And what does it mean when you say, I like my job? That means you like the actual work, you like the actual outcomes, you like the actual impact. You might even actually like the customers you work with or the people you work with. And that's really the dream. So I leave you with that. And until next time, have a good week.